My name is Ijaz Malik from the United States, and this is my story of the Colourful Heritage. We are originally from the eastern part of India, state of Bihar, which is near Calcutta, and where my father graduated as a medical doctor. My father was born and brought up in a small village called Khera. He studied at a sort of a medical school, not a medical university, in the first 2 years, and then he went to Patna Medical College where he got his degree. A year later he got married. He was then asked or recruited by the British Army. So he went to Burma from East India in 1944. My elder brother was not born at that time, and he was recruited by the British Army to join with the Indian Army as part of the medical team to basically attend to the casualties of the British and the Indian soldiers and so forth. It was pretty clear the British were more interested in him treating the British soldiers that were wounded versus the Indian soldiers that were wounded. They come first, kind of thing. But yet the front line was being handled by the Indian Army. And then round about just before the independence, there was a lot of civil rights between Hindu and Muslims. And he was told that his own village was being attacked, which was a village of about 500 people, predominantly Hindus, and maybe about 5 or 10 Muslim families, of which he was one of them. So he basically asked permission to return back, which he did, to come back to his village and find that there was nobody there. And it was the Hindus who were very close friends of the family that told him where they had been taken to help them survive this riots. And so he went and found them, and then of course the partition took place. And my elder brother was 1 year old at the time, which is when he decided that he didn't see a future for himself, and he was advised to migrate to Pakistan. So we took the train from East India all the way across to Bombay, and then on a ship and landed in Karachi. And given that his profession was in medicine, he was able to get a job at one of the medical universities in Karachi. And 2 years later, in 1949, I was born in Karachi, and we stayed there for several years, and 3 more brothers were added to the family, so we were a total of 5. And it was in 52, 53 when he saw that things were not shaping up for Pakistan as he had imagined as a Muslim state, and he decided to come to UK for his postgraduate studies. Left us in a place called Bhawalpur, which is north of Karachi. And after my father was settled in London for a couple of years, he then asked us to join him. So in 1955, my mother and the 5 sons took a boat, which was more of a cargo ship, and we were on that ship on our way to UK in 1955. From Karachi, it went to Aden. From Aden, it went through the Suez Canal up to Gibraltar, and then through Turkey, and then up to France, and then on to Southampton. So after having lived only 4 or 5 years in Pakistan, at an early age, we came to this country. Renting a flat was very limited to non-whites, and there would be open signs, no West Indies, no Africans, no Pakistanis, no Indians, no dogs, no cats, so forth. So he had very little choice in terms of what he could rent, but finally he was able to rent a 2-bedroom flat for the 7 of us. Monthly income was about £100 a month, in which the whole family had to live on. And he was still taking classes and studying for his FRCS at the time. So we saw that it was a struggle in the beginning. My own mother took up a job sewing curtains and sweaters and things like that to make ends meet. The 50s was a period which was a struggle for both my father and particularly my mother, who could not speak a word of English and yet had to go to the grocery store to buy things. There were not any Indian Pakistani shops. To go to a laundromat to wash clothes, not knowing how much coin to put in and what is the value of each coin at that time. So she made it a point to start to learn English, and that to homeschooling. She never took classes at any place. She decided to learn, as we would do our homework, we would help my mother also learn English and so forth. So a little bit here and there she would make it out. So within a year or two she was able to get a grasp of the basics. And we lived in southwest London at the time. There was no masjid other than the Regent Masjid that was there. Adjusting for us was not a problem because we picked up English very quickly. I think we had very good friends in the school with children. We got along. We used to play together. And as I recall, most of our friends were British at the time because there were very few Pakistani Indian families around. In 1960, his elder brother, being in education, had come, and he told my father that this is not really the right place to raise your children. They have no understanding of the language, Urdu, or Islam for that matter. So he told my father that you should just send all your sons to Pakistan and they will stay with me in a place called Quetta, which is in Balochistan. And he was the principal of this school. It was a public school. So my father said, okay, we'll start with the top 3 and see how it goes, and then if it works, we'll send the 4th one and then the 5th one. So it was a little bit of an experimental exercise. So of course when we went there, we only spoke English. We didn't speak Urdu. And when my first day in class, I remember that the Urdu that was being taught was the poetry of Allama Iqbal. And here we don't even know Alif, Be, Pe, Te and so forth. And my chacha, my uncle, his brother, knew exactly what was going to happen. So he put us through a crash course of Urdu with 2 teachers, one in the morning, one in the evening, for the first 6 months. And that's about the time it took for us to catch up. So we stayed there for 5 years, from 60 to 65. I did my matriculation, which is like a high school degree. 2 years later, my 4th brother followed then, and then the 5th followed. The 4th and 5th stayed only for a couple of years, and then they were brought back to England. Our 5 brothers that we are, you can see the differences in their thinking and culture from top to bottom. I came back in 1965 to do my O-levels and A-levels here. My elder one went on to Dhaka to become a doctor. My grandfather never believed in educating the girls in our family. And it was my father and his brother that was the driving force, that the next generation of girls will get an education. And that did happen. So he left London and went to Saudi Arabia to start up an eye hospital in Dhahran. He did that for 2 years. And then 1974 he moved to Abu Dhabi and stayed there for about close to till he retired, about 13 years or so, working on an eye hospital in Abu Dhabi. And through that, it gave him some financial opportunity to do something for his family and the next generation of children. He supported a number of them through those years, and I think he felt very satisfied after moving to do that kind of work. So while he was in the Middle East, he was supporting the family in London, and as well as supporting me while I was in the States. And he felt very satisfied with that, very, very satisfied with that. And then of course when he retired, he went to Karachi and volunteered his services to a free eye hospital for the next 15 years. And he was operating till the age of 80. But the base was still the house in southwest London. My mother stayed here because my father felt that education for the children had to be done here. So she made the decision to stay with the children till they went off to universities. My other siblings, one went to Oxford University, another went to Dundee University here, and of course the 5th one decided he wanted to become an actor. His name is Athar Malik. In the movie industry he's called Art Malik because people couldn't pronounce Athar, so he called himself Art. And after he finished his O-levels, my father asked him, so what do you want to do? So then very slowly he said, I want to be an actor. And of course that didn't go well with my father. And he explained to him that it's going to be a real struggle for you in this country, being an Asian and so forth. And he absolutely put his foot down and said no. And it was about a year and a half later when my mother then told my father that if that's where his heart is and that's what he wants to do, let him do it. If he's not successful, he'll learn from this experience and then he'll go do something else. So my father reluctantly said yes to it. And he went to Guildhall College in London. His wife, that's where he met his wife. And they're happily married, 2 daughters. But that's the path that he took. Luckily, he was successful in it. When I came back from Pakistan in '65, and we were put in a class where students who had not done well, we felt that why were we separated from the norm class levels? And that was one of the reasons why I migrated to USA, because I didn't see for myself that we were on a fair balance with people here versus us. So after doing A-level, then I migrated to the United States in 1968, and I went to Michigan first for a 2-year junior college. But it was so cold over there that I decided that I'll move to somewhere more warmer. So I went to California, graduated from Berkeley as a chemical engineer in 1972, and then did my master's subsequently after that. And then I got married in '76 to a Pakistani girl, and lived in California, worked in California. We had 3 children, elder daughter, then a son, then a 3rd daughter. So I decided that if I'm going to expose my children to our culture, to our language and so forth, this would be the time to do it. Here we are now, 1980 or so, and fortunately with the company I was working for in the telecommunications market, they wanted to set up an office in Pakistan, and so in '84 I went there for a month myself, decided I would stay in Islamabad. So they were basically age 4, 3 and 1, and everything was fine till I didn't quite adjust myself with the way work is done in Pakistan. And so it was unfortunate that I had to return back for those reasons. It was more of a career decision, not because of the culture or the people of Pakistan. But it gave the children, they learned Urdu, they finished their Quran, they were exposed to our relatives and so forth. So some of that identity was beginning to embed in their minds. But I felt that was not enough. So we then in the '80s went and lived in Malaysia for 4 years, and then Jakarta, Indonesia for another 4 years, till they had finished their high school level education. So in all, I would say 8 and 3, 11 years of their young life was lived in these Muslim countries. I felt that environment, the people, the listening to the azan 5 times a day out of your home had an effect, to the point where I could now take them back to the States and they can go to universities and so forth. The children of today, the Muslim children of today, really ask questions. They want answers. They have a lot of why this and why that and so forth. Whereas when we grew up, we never questioned any of this, right? Resulting in my own daughter having finished the Quran at the age of 7, but never understood a word of what she read. So she decided to now look at the translation. She went to Kuwait to learn Quranic Arabic for 2 years and so forth. So the way they see Islam, and I think it's similar here, is to really do understand it and why things are the way they are. My father would visit us every year during Ramadan. And my father said to my brother, he said, I'd like to visit your hospital one day, just to see how hospitals here are, So my elder brother agreed, sure, no problem at all, Abba, I'll take you and you can see the ward and my colleagues and so forth. So in the morning he is all ready with his jacket and tie on, and just like he would visit the hospitals in England. And my brother, when he goes and does the round on Saturdays, he's very informal. He'll have shorts, he'll wear his slippers and a t-shirt. And so my father looked at him in the morning. He says, well, his name is Ijaz. He said, Ijaz, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. So my brother says, I am ready. So he looked at him, then he looked at what he was portraying himself. And out of the bloom, he said, I tell you what, why don't you go ahead? I'll go some other day. And he didn't go. He didn't go. He just felt that is the kind of, that is how you should portray yourself or be when you're in that particular, and that's how he grew up when he was here. And I don't know how much of it has to do with him trying to do it to feel accepted versus trying to become one of them. I think it was the first one. I think it was being accepted. I think the message I would give to not only this generation but the next generation is to maintain your own values as parents based on how we were brought up, pass that along to the children, but leave it as an option to them, and whether they accept it or they don't accept it. We cannot force it down on them to speak Urdu, for example, because they've never lived in a country which speaks Urdu, but yet they understand Urdu. But the important values of our religion, bring it down to things that are tangible, that they can understand and live with.